Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
With AD on his way back from seeing Jerry Seinfeld in Las Vegas, we figured what better time than to revisit his conversation with legendary Seinfeld writer Spike Feresten.
Spike has contributed so much to things that we all love, whether we realize this or not. I'm just going to dive right in. You wrote The Soup Nazi, the Seinfeld episode of Soup.
Yeah, I did.
You wrote the muffin tops, the little kicks, the junk mail. But it goes on and on and on. And you've done so much over the years, but now we've established who the hell you are. I wanted to go right back to the beginning with you because I was interested to find out that this guy that had written things that I care so much about over the years also started life in a way similar to how I was going to. You went to this school called Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, which for people that don't know is this music school that is described as very easy to get into, hard to get out of. And it's sort of like a training ground for professional musicians.
Why is it hard?
Talk about that.
Why is getting out of it was the easiest part of it for me.
Well,
getting in was easy too, but I'm interested in that. I've never heard that before. Why is it hard to get out of?
Well, they said when we were I took a tour of that when I was 16 years old. I had scholarship money burning a hole in my back pocket. I was like, I'm going to go study jazz and classical percussion and be a music teacher or something. That was going to be my gig. When I got there and I was taking the tour, they're like, just so you know, a lot of people get into this place. Not many succeed in graduating. It's tough to get in, hard to get out. And come to find out, usually people go, F this, 2 years in. I'm a working professional musician. A piece of paper is not going to further things too much for me.
Or they just drop in, like Pat Metheny. I'm sure that was in the Pat Metheny times, where he would drop in for a year and then he'd go off and play in Boston in some big concert. It was hard. I mean, that first year, they say, we're going to get you, the music theory is going to be so intense that by the end of the second year, we're going to play some jazz. We're going to play a jazz album, and you're going to transcribe it, and all we're going to do is give you middle C on the piano. And by the end of that 2 years, you can do that. I can't do it now.
Right.
I can't even tell you what classical music is or jazz is. But back then, you're so brainwashed, and they pull it apart so beautifully that you can do that. They play one note, they play a song, and you write down everything, including the drum parts. What happens after that, I don't know, because I got the hell out of there.
Right. It's an interesting one, because it's such a specific set of skills that, I suppose... I remember studying the music theory I had to study to get into a place like that.
Yeah.
And I know how to do big band arrangements, or at least did when I was 15. Now right. I don't, and it's one of those weird things.
You, right. But here's my theory on Berklee College of Music and any of these music schools, all right? That there are all these kids like us in these small towns across America who start bands, and suddenly, we're the big deal in town. You know what I'm saying? And you think, well, after you graduate high school, and this is the way I thought, I'm pretty much Jimi Hendrix reincarnated. That's what I believe.
Right.
Even though the years don't really match up with his death and my birth, I'm certain his soul occupies my body. And I should now carry forth this popularity, this safety net I created from the bullies in high school, because I'm cool and I've got girls. I'm going to take that to Boston now and naturally become a superstar, where I was met by every other kid in every other small town who also played guitar. Also there's one issue, like I was saying before we started speaking, it was 99.9% guys who feel that way.
Funkhauser, we are not in delay.
That's okay, I got it.
Isn't this the internet? Don't we have a president who says whatever he wants, so now we can?
Well,
if
there's one thing I've learned from this election is rules that apply to us do not apply to everybody else.
No, there are no rules anymore. It's all over. Do whatever you want. Anyway, I don't know. It just felt immediately like I made a mistake, and I wasn't able to admit to myself that I made a mistake in my choice of colleges for about 3 years until I found TV.
And we were talking about this a little before. The thing that made me go, I don't want to go to Berklee College of Music was I took that tour that you do when you're 15, 16 years old and starting to think about colleges. And I'm on this tour with this a group of students and this one other guy who, long flowing mullet, long after mullets were no longer a thing, giant treble clef dangly earring, and clearly the time that he was not playing Dungeons and Dragons. He was practicing guitar very, very hard. What did you call it earlier?
Shedding. We call that shedding. I'm shedding, man.
Yeah.
I got to go shed.
I got to go to the woodshed and practice my scales.
Yeah,
I'm not fully versed in.
Go to the shed and put a gun in your mouth, buddy. It's 3 a.m. Let me sleep.
Me being a 15-year-old red-blooded American walking through Berklee College of Music, I noticed that there's a lot of intense musical study going on. I also noticed that there's not a girl to be seen. So I'm just like, And any girls go to this school? And I was like, and the guy was like, not really. And the dangly treble clef earring guy goes, good, no distractions. And I was like, this place is not for me.
Real radio.
104.1. Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
AD's on an airplane on his way back from a long weekend in Las Vegas, getting to see the one and only Jerry Seinfeld. So what better of an opportunity than get to revisit his chat with legendary Seinfeld writer Spike Feresten. Hopefully you're enjoying.
We had Butch Vig, the producer on the show that produced Nirvana's Nevermind a little while ago and produced bands like Smashing Pumpkins and Green Day and Foo Fighters. And I was like, you realize, of course, that you changed everything. Like I'm on like 5 different rock stations now, and we play Smells Like Teen Spirit every single day. And often when I'm playing it, I think if it wasn't for this song, this radio station probably wouldn't exist. And if it did, I'd be playing a totally different type of music. And driving into that, I was thinking about you and everything that you'd been a part of over the years. And I was just like, you have affected the landscape of everything that we do with some of the things that you've been a part of over the years. Do you ever stop and think, holy crap, that's amazing?
I think it's cool. You know, it's something I've learned in comedy or just in entertainment. And it's like it's the same is true for music. You never know what you're doing that's going to pop, and hopefully you're just looking for a pop somewhere.
Right.
But I'm still surprised. I see daily references to the soup Nazi and no soup for you or no blank for you it's in the Oxford English Dictionary now.
It is. Did you come up with no soup for you?
I was writing for David Letterman at the time and going to that guy. There's a real guy in New York. That's the old story. But he used to say that.
I used to go eat at the Soup Nazi,
right,
and I went there because of Seinfeld, and then when he told me move to the side after I ordered, I was like, Soup Nazi told me to move over. Yeah. Great.
Most people would go there and do something wrong, so he would say no soup for you. Yeah. Many times he would just swear at you. He would just say, I can't say it, or he would just grumble and take your soup away. But when I was introduced to him, it's like that first scene where Jerry takes George, and that's me. I'm George, and I'm like, I know how to order soup. I said to the other writer, I don't need an instruction, and I know how to eat it, and I messed it up, and he took my soup away, and he said, no soup for you, and it was, this was just a story like I'm telling you.
Whoa.
I told Larry
no
and Jerry
soup for you was... I guess I got a kindler, more gentler version of him because he never took anything away. He just told me to move to the side after I was done ordering.
Yeah.
But he actually said no soup for you to you.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, I'm George. A lot of that episode is documentary. A lot of that episode, there was a woman who said, just like Elaine said, you kind of look like Al Pacino. And he went, oh, really? And just pulled her soup away. That really happened. There were so many moments that we didn't put in. I don't know if I did put it in or not with the blocking where if someone was getting yelled at by the soup Nazi, the other people in line would turn away. This is in real life because they did not want to be associated with the pariah, the jerk who screwed it up. Even if they knew him, they're like, I don't know that guy because the soup is that good and they didn't want to be punished. So,
oh my God. It's amazing. Okay, all right. So more on that in a little bit, but I want to go back to, because you're studying music at Berklee College of Music. You're one of those guys that, to me, I look at everything that you've done, whether you've been a comic, whether you've been a writer, whether you've been a host of something, whether you've been a musician, and you just seem to me like one of those guys or girls that has something on their mind that will come out, whether in some form or another. Like, were you always, like, at what point did you notice, I got stuff that I need to get out of my head?
Well, I don't know. I was always kind of operating in a counterculture way in school. Like, school never made sense to me. So when I was in a class and I was asked to write a paper, instead I made a little movie. You know what I mean? Or, they wanted me to give a speech. Instead, I would come in and lip sync Old Black Betty or something stupid. And, I can't say that I've ever had stuff to get out of my head. I will say, with respect to Seinfeld specifically, that was a show where you weren't making up stories. You were telling stories that happened to you. And over the years, things happen to me, still today. There are always these weird little moments in my life that I take note of and I write down. And Seinfeld was a perfect place for that, where you could say, hey, I had a conversation with my mailman yesterday to try to get him to stop dropping Pottery Barn catalogs off at my house, and I showed him the trash can I keep by the front door, and as he's handing me mail every day, I just put it into the trash can, and you know what he said? He goes, "You can't turn the mail off." He said, "You can't stop me from bringing this here," and and that became the Kramer story, or this little observation where I thought wallets are stupid. And I had this long-standing, I think, season-long argument with Jerry about, you're an old man because you carry a wallet, Jerry. Everything in it you don't need. He goes, I like my wallet. And we opened up his wallet and we started taking things out. You don't need this. You don't need that. You don't need this. Steve Corrin had the little Tony the Tiger or whatever it was. There were a lot of the stories that I wrote and that were written on that show came out of these moments in the writer's room or in our personal lives. And that was very satisfying. That was a very satisfying experience for me.
It's amazing. It's absolutely. Let me ask you this. I don't know if you were around for this one episode, but there's one Seinfeld moment where it makes no sense whatsoever. And I think it's right where Jerry gets done telling George that he's going to start dating his ex-girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting at the diner, and all of a sudden George goes, I swallowed a fly. What can happen? And it has nothing to do with anything.
Yes.
It might be my favorite Seinfeld moment just because it has nothing to do with anything.
That is not the only time that moment has been in the show. Those we used to call tangents. Just little tangents in the middle of dialogue that are non sequiturs that have to do with nothing. Because when we all talk, we have those little moments.
Yeah.
Your friends with ADHD, when suddenly you say something and then they're looking over there, hey, look at that guy's shoes. And they go, okay, what are we talking about? Donald Trump? Okay, whatever. Those are those little moments that I think Larry and Jerry sort of weaved into dialogue to make it feel more, to reflect life better.
Well, it's a new one. Here I come again.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah.
He's written for Saturday Night Live, for David Letterman, Space Ghost, The Simpsons, but the show that impresses us most on this show here is his work on Seinfeld. And with AD on his way back from Las Vegas, seeing the one and only Jerry Seinfeld, we figured, why not revisit AD's conversation with the one and only legendary Seinfeld writer, Spike Feresten.
There's a very valuable lesson for everyone in your story. And you share a trait with a lot of people that I see as being screamingly successful, and that you just look at the world differently. I think the meat and potatoes way to look at life is you get a job, you go to college, you work harder than the person sitting next to you, you somehow claw your way to middle management, and therefore you'll be able to afford to be in debt for the rest of your life. You have, you went to Berklee College of Music, decided it was a crock. Now tell me if this story is true. You got in trouble for dropping light bulbs out of your dorm room window or something
very,
like that?
very true. Yeah, very true.
And you got in trouble for it, turned on the TV, saw David Letterman dropping stuff off a roof, and you're like, I could get paid for doing this. This is
Yeah, it was a little while after, but yeah, drunk Saturday night, having fun, hating school. And perfectly nice school, by the way. I'm just in the wrong place. And,
Right.
I'm also in charge. I don't know what they called them back then, RAs at the dorm. I was like on that council. So now here I am Saturday night throwing light bulbs out a window, and I almost hit a kid in the head who happens to be my enemy on the floor, who assumes I was trying to kill him, which I was not. So I'm kicked out of the dorms. And now I'm watching David Letterman a few weeks later doing tower drops, where he'd get on a tower and drop pudding and light bulbs and all sorts of things off in slow motion. And I thought, well, here are the consequences for what happened to me. I'm kicked out of the dorms. I'm still in school, kicked out of the dorms now. But this guy's getting paid by, what is it, NBC? What is that? That's a job? I don't know anybody in show business. I'm just, my mom's a nurse, my dad was a salesman, and now here I am in Boston, and I'm bartending to put myself through school. But I said to myself, I'm going to go to work for that show. That's where I need to be. There's my home.
So,
it called to me. It was a lighthouse.
This is really this is the point I think I'm trying to make is like, there you are, no experience in show business, living in a completely different city, don't have connections, don't have a family with a background in this sort of thing, and you see it on TV and you go, that is clearly the vocation for me. That's what I'm going to do. And a lot of people, I think, say that to themselves. They see sort of like, oh man, I would love to do this. So they see someone else doing that.
Most of them are stalkers, by the way. I just happen to not be that.
Well, I remember when I got my first job in radio, like I basically just kept showing up. And I was like, give me, and they were like, okay, have a job. And I was like, yeah, I got a job. And they're like, it was either going to be that or a restraining order. I was like, yay, I got a job.
That's right.
And so, like, explain to me how you went from seeing that you could get paid for doing something that you got in trouble for in the dorm to actually doing it. How'd you wind up going from college with this germ of an idea to David Letterman?
Here's how I rationalized it. One, I grew up with a television set rather than a babysitter. I've watched way too much TV with my brother, and I felt like because I had seen so much of it and understood how it worked that I could write it, that was my experience in it. Now, getting from Boston to New York to 30 Rock, that was just chance. That was just fate. A woman walked in one day. I was bartending at Legal Seafoods. I was shucking oysters and serving beer. And a woman walked in with the David Letterman varsity jacket, that yellow jacket with the yellow sleeves. And I said, do you work at David Letterman? She goes, no, my boyfriend did. We just broke up. And I said, could you get me an internship there? She goes, yeah, he's still in love with me. He'll do whatever I want. She goes, what's your name?
I mean, but that's the thing.
I hadn't even met this girl yet formally, and I was asking her for that internship, and she hooked it up. And she called him up, and before I knew it, I was taking the train, or I think I was flying Big Apple Air for $29 on Wednesdays to 30 Rock, sleeping on my friends' floors, and then taking the train back after the party on Saturday night, and interning for Letterman and SNL at the same time.
But it's insane. Like how many people would actually do that? Like,
it gets
through
crazier.
your door. So, like, did that shape how you go through life? Where you're just like, do you see opportunity in places where you don't think other people do?
No, I do take risks. It gets harder and harder with a family, but I'm in the middle of something like that right now. I mean, I look back at that moment, and it's just the same as any other moment through my 20 or 30 years in entertainment where, there are certain points where you take all your chips and you put them on red and you go, this is, I would rather fail than not take advantage of this possible opportunity.
If you don't try, you will never know. And risk is hard. It's a big, like, people that have that ability to do this thing where they can, it's not even the risk associated with it. I mean, obviously, as you get older and you have a family, that grows and grows, but it's just, change is so uncomfortable for so many people. And you were able to see it walk through your door and be like,
this was a necessary change. I was so excited. I mean, here I'm with, I'm around David Letterman. I'm around the Saturday Night Live crew. I grew up watching that show, and I feel like I'm touching this history, this television history, and part of this. Al Franken, and Davis, they're still hanging around there.
But weren't you like the receptionist at 30 Rock as well, or is that not?
Well, here's the big risk I took. So after I did that internship, I went back to Boston. I was planning on finishing up at Berklee College of Music, and someone invited me to be an intern just on Letterman. And what I did is I sold my guitar, I sold my amplifier, I sold my motorcycle, and anything else I had. I had about $3,400 $400 by the end of that. I called my parents. I said, I'm dropping out of school and I'm moving to New York. I had enough money for 4 weeks of living in New York to be an internship. I was supposed to be an internship for a year. Had enough money for 4 weeks. And 3 weeks, I just figured this will work out somehow. And I didn't even look past like 1 week. I was like, at least 4 weeks at Letterman. I don't care what happens to me after that. I've done it. And 3 weeks in, Saturday Night Live liked me as an intern and called me up and said, we want to give you a job, paid job, answering phones, which I promptly turned down. And said, nope, I really like Letterman a lot better. Thank you. I'm going to work for free. And then the people I was working for at Letterman said, we're firing you. And I said, why? It's because you're an idiot. You don't have any money. And we appreciate that you like our show better, but you need to take this job. Go take it. It will change your life. And
wow.
So
wow. That's amazing.
That's the little story. And
so... all right, let me ask you this, and this is the other part of the mythology that I wonder if it's true. You started writing for SNL because you would see Dennis Miller in the hallways and you would tell him jokes that he could maybe use on Weekend Update. Like, is this like you would kind of, hey, funny thing happened this week in Iran, blur, and he would eventually spotted your talent and got you a gig that way? Is this true?
Kind of. I mean, I grew up watching Weekend Update, so the second I got there as an intern, I started submitting jokes to Dennis. And when I was hired, I got one joke on that season. It was the end of my internship, and it was some Ronald Reagan. I don't even remember what it was. But when I saw it go on TV, it was like, I imagined what it was like doing a hit of crack. I lost my mind. I went, oh my God, I can put something out and the whole world sees it. This is fantastic. So now I'm the receptionist and my desk is literally right in front of Dennis's office and his door's open all day. And we become friendly and I'm, answering phones, but the phones don't ring that much. So I start reading newspapers and just writing jokes and literally turning around going, here's 10. Here's some more. And, that year I start really connecting. I start getting 2, 3, sometimes 5 jokes in a Weekend Update. And, suddenly, and people are laughing. They're going, who wrote that? And they go, that the receptionist kid did. This is, by the way, where I get my nickname of Spike, too, because my name is Michael. And Michael Shoemaker, who was PA and now is Seth Meyers' executive producer, said, I'm the only Mike on staff. You're Spike because your hair sticks up. And I'm like, whatever, man, just don't fire me. Right. So this is where it all kind of begins. And as a joke, they said, what do you want your credit to be? And I'm like, make it Spike Feresten. I'm not going to be around here long. This thing's not going to work out. I have to go back home soon and finish college. So, what, the joke is still going on, apparently.
So when you tell your parents, hey, Mom, Dad, I've spent my entire life up to this point practicing guitar. I'm now going to sell that guitar and move to New York because I think I'm funny. Yep. How'd that go?
My mom and dad confessed to me that they had written me off at age 15.
Oh, no.
That they said we kind of redirected and focused on the other two, on Chris and Beth.
Are you kidding me?
They were like, whatever you want to do, gap year, ski bum.
I mean, really?
Yeah, totally. Not lying. Which made me laugh. So there was no real, you have to understand. I grew up in a household where they were very controlling people. So when I was 18, I got to college, I called them up and I said, look, I'm getting a job as a bartender and you're not going to tell me what to do anymore. Goodbye. That was my big emancipation. I paid for my college. I paid for everything just so they couldn't say anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they never bothered to inform them. I'd see them at Christmas and go, here's what I'm doing now.
And what about the siblings that they put all their stock in? How'd they wind up doing?
Well, Wally's doing great. He owns the Cue Card company that takes care of Fallon and Seth Meyers, Saturday Night Live. I'm sure you've seen him on the floor there during the commercials. And
it's so strange though, because I love finding these things out because I didn't know there was such a thing as a Cue Card company. Yeah. It's just cards. You find out these things exist, like these professions exist that you had no idea. So one sibling owns a Cue Card company. Go on.
And my sister works for Amazon in Europe, in Luxembourg. So everybody's doing fine.
Everyone's doing fine.
That's all good.
You redeemed yourself. You didn't get that big, I told you so, everybody sucks and I rule moment with your siblings. But, sounds like it worked out happy.
No, everybody's happy for everybody.
Oh, my gosh. It's amazing. Amazing story. And it really just speaks to your tenacity. And I that thing that you had that made you go, F it, I'm going to take my life in my hands and do something that I would like to do, and I'm going to figure it out as I go. Look, we live in it doesn't even begin to cover it to call these uncertain times. And I think now more than ever before, we talk about this on the show all the time, that sense of personal responsibility, handling your own business, seeing what you want, seeing the type of person you want to be, and going for it. There's nobody that's going to get you there other than you, really. And what you have described it couldn't be a more perfect example of that.
Thank you. What can I say?
No problem. Good job.
Could you tell my wife that? She doesn't feel that way about me.
So you said you're, and I want to talk a little bit about your past more, but you said you're in the middle of taking a risk right now.
Oh, constantly. I mean, I host my car show, Car Matchmaker on Esquire, but that's really only a couple months out of the year. And about a year ago, I started a production company with an old friend. And, that's a big change of course for this career. Mm-hmm. So, that's what I mean. But, it's so much easier to make that decision now when I can look back and go, historically, I've done this dozens of times. Even the choice of leaving Letterman after 5 years in New York and going, I'm going to move to L.A. And they're like, why? And you go, do you have a job? Nope. I want a dog. I want a car. And I want a backyard. I'm tired of living in boxy apartments. And, I feel like I've done enough damage in New York, and we'll see how L.A. works out. And 3 weeks later, I got hired on Seinfeld, which was cool. It was great, but I wasn't really moving there to get hired on Seinfeld. I just wanted a different life for myself. So, this is another new phase for my career, starting a production company in a studio and seeing how that works. And,
and what sort of things are you producing?
It's we're going to focus on scripted and unscripted comedy. I really enjoy working in the unscripted space. What some people call reality TV is actually very varied. And my partner John created Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, and has worked here for many years, and he's very interested in scripted content. So we partner up and we're going to do it all. We're going to do scripted comedy, we're going to do unscripted comedy, and then anything else in between that interests us.
Very, very cool. That's awesome.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun because now, here's what I love about it, truthfully, is, usually, contractually, I can only do 1 or 2 shows a year because, they get to the deal stage and then the lawyers go, well, look, you got Car Matchmaker and you're writing this half hour for so-and-so, and they're not going to let you do anything else. Now, as an entity, as a company, I can do 20 projects a year, and I can hire people, I can hire showrunners, I can bring people on, I can find new people, I can, pick talent a lot easier, and then play on whatever shows that interest me, if that makes sense. So I'm really looking forward to this new phase because it seems a lot more fun, and it seems like I can do some good in the world by hiring friends and also create nice little places and shows for me to go to work every day.
AD on the radio.
As we wait with great anticipation for AD to return from his trip to Las Vegas to see Jerry Seinfeld and hear all about it tomorrow, we get the next greatest thing, revisiting his conversation with legendary Seinfeld writer Spike Feresten.
I didn't get any bread.
Just forget it. Let it go.
Excuse me, I think you forgot my bread.
Bread, $2 extra.
$2, but everyone in front of me got free bread.
You want bread?
Yes, please.
$3!
What?
No soup for you!
You have you've got this production company that you've just started with. You're planning on working on scripted and unscripted television. Now, Do you think now, because I think there was a perception for the longest time of TV being the redheaded stepchild of film and movies. I think that's, it's not an original thought. I think that's completely different right now. I think with all the different platforms that are available, television is just, or you can call it TV. I think it's really just become shows or content, but it's really where it's at for, the creative peak of people doing what you're doing.
Yeah, there are a lot of places. I think you're exactly right. Content is king right now. And if you notice, there are lots of film stars doing television. And, you hear a lot of things. I don't know. I don't dig too deep in the business of it. I kind of go by what I do. And here's what I'm watching Netflix a lot. I'm watching HBO a lot. I'm watching a lot of dramas, you know what I'm saying? And I'm it takes an event for me to get to the movies like Star Wars these days. So, it's interesting. From my point of view, it's never been bigger. It seems like there's opportunity everywhere, and there are networks that need content. And if you can make it right now, you're set. If you're an actor or you're an actress right now, if you're decent, you're going to work. There's so many places for you to do this stuff. And then if you listen to what the big four networks are saying, it seems like the world is on fire and there's no more TV. And it's like, no, just you guys are. The rest of us are fine. Because look at this cool show I'm watching on my phone on this funny app I just downloaded. I like this. So again, if you're a creative, it's a brilliant time. It's a great time to be in this business.
I think the only things I watch on TV, like, oh, my show's on, click, is I think the only thing left where I do that is probably Saturday Night Live. Like,
really?
I mean,
yes,
yeah. I mean, I think that's the one thing where I'm like, I want it's live, and I don't care what the situation is. It's more exciting to listen to something live than it is to go back and watch it on demand when it's a live thing. That like, oh my God, what might happen thing is. So there's that, and then there's baseball. But then I watch all like the MLB stuff on the app. You know, like I watch Mets games on my phone while I'm walking my dog. It's the best.
All right, well, I'm watching one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. That was recommended to me, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell your listeners what this show is, and maybe you know about it. All right, and I found it, I think, on iTunes through a recommendation. It's an Italian production. It's called Gomorrah. Do you know Gomorrah?
Do not.
Have you heard of Gomorrah? It's an Italian mob drama, tonally like The Sopranos. Remember The Sopranos, of course, on HBO, but set in Naples, in Sicily. It's Italian. You got to read it. But this is one of the best shows I've seen in about 5 or 6 years come across my TV set. My phone, my iPad, my computer.
I can't do subtitles, and I'll tell you why.
You will. You will.
No. I would love to. The vast
is this a confession that you're about to make, and I'll tell you why, because that's the only thing I want to hear you say. Or I'm going to watch this.
The vast majority of my time is spent analyzing data and trying to figure out which Metallica or Red Hot Chili Peppers song is going to make iHeartRadio more money. So the only time I really get to watch television is when I'm sitting in front of my computer scheduling a radio station, programming it. And so I cannot read while I do this.
You're gonna learn Italian, and that way you can just listen to them and understand what they're saying.
No, I will absolutely watch this.
Well, the rest of you who are listening, all 10 of you watch Gomorrah. You're going to love this show. This is somebody, a friend of mine who runs Spike TV said, you got to watch this. And I was skeptical, and I said, subtitles, I don't know. I like to eat when I'm watching TV, so I'm looking down, I'm looking up. I just came back from New York. I had the rest of the season on my iPad and just watched it on the plane. Just couldn't stop. Just didn't want to get off the plane when we landed in New York. Just let me finish this last episode. It's so good.
That's awesome. No, it's so cool. Thank you for the tip. And you know what I really love about sort of like, I watch a lot of Netflix too. Were you into comic books growing up? Is that a thing
for you?
Yeah.
But the funny ones, not the superhero-y ones. Like Peep Show. Did you remember Peep Show?
Peep Show. Have you seen the English? This is again kind of tangential. Have you watched the English sitcom Peep Show?
No.
It just ended. It's been on since 2003, and it just ended. And it's one of the funniest things I have ever seen. Like it's whole.
Isn't that great?
I'll watch Gomorrah if you watch Peep Show.
I'll watch Peep Show. All right, that's a deal.
All right, good.
We're in.
But the The thing that I love about all those, whether it's Daredevil or Jessica Jones or any of these comic book adaptations, or for that matter, any of the stuff that winds up on Netflix, they know they're getting a season. They know they're getting however many episodes it's going to be in that season. So they have at least that, as opposed to, I really wanted to write television for a while. And I used to listen to a couple of different sort of TV writer podcasts. And I would they would have everyone on it from, folks like you or the guys that wrote Frasier to people that just got staffed on Supernatural on the CW. And they had the guys from Lost on there. And they're like, yeah, we didn't know if we were going to last more than 4 episodes. So all that questions will be answered stuff. They're like, we were making it up as we went along. We have no idea. And I was like, you frauds, you cons, you hacks. It really upset me. And the fact that something, when you get a season on a Netflix or a Hulu or whatever you're going to call it, you at least know that there's going to be a beginning, middle, and an end. And they're going to do the responsible thing.
Are you watching Westworld? Because that is my fear about Westworld.
That they're making it up as they go.
They're making it up as they go. Yeah, it's been a little slow. I don't know. I loved the movie when I loved Yul Brynner's version of Westworld. It terrified me as a kid. One of 2 movies I think that terrified me: The Birds when I was 12, and this one. Nothing else scares me, but those 2. But it feels like it's I don't know. It's not working right. It's something's a little off.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
AD's voyage to Las Vegas to go see Jerry Seinfeld all wraps up tonight. We'll hear all about it tomorrow, and we'll wrap up today's show with the rest of his interview with legendary Seinfeld writer Spike Feresten.
Come on, who's dancing? Want me to get it started? I'll get it started.
Sweet fancy Moses. Elaine dance.
It's more like a full-body dry heave. Set the music.
The little kicks. Again, one of those moments where you're just like, okay, you've contributed to something that is now firmly a part of the cultural zeitgeist, like you did with Soup Nazi. Like, I can say a full-body dry heave set to music, and everybody knows what the hell I'm talking about.
That's a good line. That's Jeff Schaefer's line, one of the other writers. I remember when he said that. A full-body dry heave set to music. Good stuff.
And do you, so you've got this production company, you're starting to make different shows.
By the way, sorry to interrupt, but you know what else Jeff wrote? Sweet Fancy Moses. Those were 3 words that he put together and did very well. I always see when we were writing. I think at that point, that's season 8. Larry was gone, and we would have 4 or 5 writers in the room. Before that, it was just Jerry and Larry kind of taking the script to the finish line. After that, we'd have little teams of 4, and I always put Jeff Schaefer on my team because he could just produce out of nowhere those little phrases that you needed. Like when he said "Sweet Fancy Moses," we all died. We were like, perfect. That is so dumb. Let's put that out there.
Sorry. Keep talking.
He's coughing. He's also, Jeff Schaefer, responsible. He called me into his office one day and he said, I got to play you something. He goes, what? He goes, this is a friend of mine's answering machine message. She just went to work. Let's wait a minute because she leaves work at 9. So at 9:10, we called her answering machine message. It rings 4 times and then it goes, believe it or not, I can't come to the phone. And it was America's Greatest Superhero, this girl singing the theme to it. And we were rolling and we would play it every day before the writers' meeting started. We would wait for her to go to work, call her machine, and all listen to it and laugh. And then we played it for Jerry. And then Jerry said, let's put that in an episode. Let's make that George's answering machine message, which we did. We shot it. And then the night that show aired, Jeff called her. I said, just call her, Jeff, and say, watch Seinfeld tonight, and slam the phone down. Don't say anything else. I don't want her to know it's you. We'll just call her and say, watch Seinfeld tonight. And she must have turned on the TV that evening and heard her answering machine message in the episode of Seinfeld with George. And we've never followed up about it. I don't even know how she reacted to it.
Funkhauser.
What?
Can you get a phone line? Yeah, call my phone, would you?
Okay.
Really quick?
Sure. You guys keep talking and take me a second.
No, that's one of my favorite scenes ever. Like, especially where he's eating popcorn and when the line hits, "Where could I be?" the way he kind of lilts to it is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. And you kind of arrived at Seinfeld. Like, you started season 7, right?
Yeah, season 7, right.
Was that one of those, like, I mean, because you were obviously completely on fire and it was the biggest show that it ever been or ever will be. Were you, at the point you joined that show, were you in that sort of, like, situation? Oh, here we go. Hold on a second. I'm just sending you the voicemail, Funkhauser.
This is someone making a phone call. Who is this?
This is my answering. This is my voicemail.
That's insane. For real?
Yes.
After all of these years. Wow, you're a crazy Seinfeld fan, aren't you? I'm not going to tell you my home address.
Are you feeling a little uncomfortable at this stage?
No, I think that's so crazy that I just told you the origin story of that. Did you know the origin story of that story?
I did not, and that's a big, as you can see, big moment for me.
Wow, that's huge. Yeah, this girl, I remember where I was sitting when Jeff first called this girl. And, it was before we had all the electronic phones and everything else where you could call someone's answering machine and they wouldn't know who the hell called, right?
Uh-huh.
But for a good 2 or 3 months of that season, that's how we started every writer's meeting. We would just call that machine and laugh at this girl. And she had no idea. And then, you get obsessed and then it gets into an episode. But, crazy.
I'm going to now that we've established a little bit of trust and goodwill on the show. I'm going to fanboy out for just one tiny second and just say, look, here's the thing. Happiness to me is something that you are responsible for. You create it in your life, and if you're not happy, that's your own problem. And generally speaking, external things aren't there to make you happy. You got to do it for yourself. But there's a very short list of things that make me happy. And when the Mets win, that makes me happy. Howard Stern makes me happy. Sure. Seinfeld makes me happy. Like it'll make me happy. The work of Charles Schultz will make me happy. Like it's just, and there's very few things that external to you
Ziggy?
that make you.
Does Ziggy make you happy?
Ziggy never caught on for me. You know what it is about
Marmaduke?
like Peanuts?
Does Marmaduke make you happy?
Not so much. And it's not even that Peanuts is especially funny. You could just see a picture of Charlie Brown and Snoopy.
Yeah, it's nostalgic. It's your childhood.
Well, it's a simple one-line drawing that captures so much emotion. Like especially if you're like me, kind of like a real mush when it comes to dogs. Like that's a big deal. But you have created something that makes me happy, and I bring this up not just to fanboy out relentlessly, but just because you've done that for people literally all over the world, and it's crazy.
That's neat. It's nice to hear. It's funny. I can't see it, but I understand it because I feel that way about other things. So I'm glad that my stupid writing has resonated in an interesting way like that. And, it's funny. I hear, when I'm with Jerry and we're hanging out in Malibu or something, people come up to us and they always say those things, and it's so nice. And they always seem to know far more about the show than we do at this point. But it's one of the most interesting things about it is you guys get to experience it in a different way than we do. While we had camaraderie and friendship and it was a lot of fun, we don't fully enjoy. There's a lot of pain in making an episode of that show. So, you know what I mean? So I'm glad you can enjoy that. I wish I could feel it the same way you feel it, but I'm happy that it resonates.
Don't you think that's the great curse of the creative person? Like, I remember being a kid and reading an interview to an interview with Eddie Vedder at Pearl Jam, and he's like, me and Chris Cornell from Soundgarden were talking about this a little while ago. It sucks that you can't enjoy your own music the way that you've enjoyed the music that made you want to make music.
It's not, a curse is too strong of a word. I mean, if give me my choice, do I want to be the guy who wrote it or the guy who watches it? I would always want to be the guy who wrote it. And it's so rare, as you know, in entertainment and or music, that anything you do resonates or pops like that. And, you know, I would never wish that I hadn't done it, and I'm happy to have that little bit of a curse, you know.
So you joined season 7. At that point, Seinfeld's the biggest thing that, like I said, ever has been or ever will be. By the way, amazing moment on the 40th anniversary of SNL where Jerry and Larry go, we were like, it was the biggest thing ever, and now there's never going to be that ever again. So that was, we did that, and no one else can ever do that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
it was like. But at that point, like, you're on fire. You probably, in the writer's room, I would imagine, you could get more of anything, more of everything. And you could get whatever the hell you wanted, whenever the hell you wanted it. Now, starting your own production company, what's it like? And are you in the writer's room the same way you were back in the day?
Well, I mean, just going back to Seinfeld, now I hadn't worked really on a half hour before. I had written a couple episodes for George Carlin from New York and an episode of The Simpsons. But I walked, into Seinfeld, a new guy. I don't really know the format or what to do. And I'm with these guys, and I just assume this is the way TV works. So we'd all have lunch together. Larry would sit at the head of the table. The writers would be sitting there. It's just the writers in one building. The rest of production was elsewhere. And, every once in a while, somebody from NBC would come over and say, hi, I'm the NBC executive. You mind if I pitch you guys an idea? And Larry would go, no, please pitch us one of your stupid ideas. And they'd say, well, we're thinking of doing a crossover night with the Friends guys, and maybe Kramer steps in for Joey. And, oh, yes, go on. This sounds wonderful, don't you think, everybody? This sounds wonderful. What's your name, sir, NBC executive? And he would just go, well, I think I can give you your answer now, before the desserts come out. Absolutely. No. Sorry, well, I can't stop the F-bombs, but...
Funkhauser, we're not in delay. Please catch up.
It was just hilarious, and I thought, well, this is just how you treat network executives. This is just with disdain, and you laugh at them, and then their faces blush, and then they leave the room. So, yeah, it was a really, I remember one Saturday you go in and the president of the network is serving you eggs. We're doing a special breakfast for you guys. And the president of the network is here, and he's the guy serving the eggs. We're like, wow, that's really amazing. They really take care of their shows, this NBC.
Do you remember the last time the head of Premiere made us pancakes, Funkhauser? Like, how did that... Yeah. No, you don't remember it because it never happened.
It never happened. And then you quickly leave and you see, well, no, this isn't going to be like this anymore, So it's been a long education. And now everything's so corporatized and everybody's managing margins. There's none of those shenanigans. Unless you're making a lot of money for somebody, you don't get... You don't get any of that stuff. But I don't care. It's all fine. Comedy is always funnier, in my opinion, when you have the bad office and you're suffering a little bit. That's the funniest place to write from. If you have the beautiful office with the beautiful view and lots of room and everything you need, you're not going to be funny. It's not going to work. You're too comfortable.
With your new thing, with your production company, do you how much time do you get to spend in the writer's room in that situation? Writing?
It's different all the time. I mean, I have a down and dirty office in Burbank, where we'll break a show down and get it on its feet, and then some nice offices out in Santa Monica where we pretend we're more successful than we are, and so it depends who we're talking to. We just signed a deal with Ferrari to do this car show, and they got the SantaAnamonica offices. And then when we, I believe we're bringing that show to Amazon. And when we talk to them, we go, look, this is how we're going to save money. Look at our offices in Burbank. So I generally go where I'm contractually required to go and or want to go. Today and this week, I'm working on a half-hour comedy pitch, and I won't tell you more than that, but that's pretty much what I'm covering. And my partner, John, is, keeping the trains running on time for the rest of the stuff. So it's good. It's good. Every week seems to be different and fun. And, so far the headaches are many, but enjoyable in a lot of ways.
It's so amazing that you've managed to get so much stuff done because, I had a very sort of like Wayne's World-esque local TV show when I lived in Texas. It was on in like 3 or 4 different markets, and a big production company came along and it was just like, we think this could be a thing and we like it, and here's a development deal. And I was like, flipping sweet, this is great. And they were also working on some sort of reality show with Appalachian Mountain Men.
Yes.
And we were just about to go shoot our pilot, and I get this call, like literally day of. Guy's supposed to be flying in. And he was like, we found out that 3 out of the 5 Appalachian Mountain Men have domestic violence charges against them. They can't be on TV. Yes. So we are now scrambling to find new cast members. And I got to be honest with you, we're not going to be able to look at your thing for another 6 months. And I was like, you know what? I'm out. I want to go do things. And I took a job elsewhere analyzing data to figure out which Metallica and Chili Peppers songs would make iHeartRadio more money, and wound up. But just like the things that have to happen before you make a TV show are incredible. And Spike Feresten,
it takes a long time.
You've managed to make an incredible number of them, which speaks not only to your talent, but to your will and the way you've gone through life. You're an inspiring guy, and I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show today. Thank you very, very much.
Really fun being here. Enjoyable conversation. Thank you.